Dana White's recent comments about Jon Jones and if he's the pound for pound best fighter on planet Earth, it got me thinking, and I created my entire top 15 pound for pound list. I'm going to go over what I think makes a pound for pound fighter, how we should base it on. But yeah, moving on, what does pound for pound mean? So it's just a basic way to determine who is the most skilled fighter, not including weight, on the planet. What should the criteria be? I think recent resume is the most important thing. Again, a quality resume, quality wins. Are you getting finishes? Are you getting submissions? Are you going to decisions? If so, who are the finishes against? Who are the decisions against? Robberies matter. I can't count a Dominic Reyes win against Jon Jones because Jon Jones lost that fight. He did not look good. Even if you say, oh, well, a win is a win, we have to look at the actual performance. He did not perform well. Even against Stipe, he didn't really perform that well. He got the finish, but the actual fight was not good. Now, the big controversy is, at what point do we stop counting wins? Is it 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, 5 years, 10 years? For Dana White, he seems to think there's no time limit. He's been saying, it's just pretty much based on resume. He even said Jon Jones, he won a second belt in heavyweight, and he claimed that heavyweight was the best division in the UFC, which is kind of crazy. Also, lighter man skill matters. The 11th ranked heavyweight is tied to Ivasa. You know who the 11th ranked bantamweight is? Jose Aldo. The lighter weight classes are fighting much more skilled guys. Flyweight, I feel like, isn't as skilled as bantamweight, but still much more skilled than heavyweight. And yeah, I feel like that wins like a years past for example, Jon Jones, right? I don't think that he's as good as he used to be. And I think it's very evident. I think that he's having more success because heavyweight is significantly worse than light heavyweight. I do not think if he went back down to light heavyweight that he would find much success. I actually think that Alex Pereira may be his easiest matchup in that division, at least in the top 5. I don't think he beats Ankalaev. I don't think he even beats Rakic. I'm going to be honest. This may be a very hot take, and I know people don't like Jamal Hill. I get it. He said he wants to fight him. That's not an easy matchup for Jon Jones. It really isn't. Guys that could box and have good takedown defense that are his size, he usually struggles against. Remember, Jon Jones lost to Dominic Reyes. It's not crazy to say Jamal Hill beats Jon Jones or has a close fight against him. That's not crazy. But yeah, moving on. I feel like there's 3 ways to decide who is the pound for pound best fighter on planet Earth. One, we could do it Dana White's way, which isn't really consistent because his way of determining it is very it's just a bunch of hypocrisy pretty much, and he wants to make it a non-active or an active GOAT list pretty much, where guys that are in the UFC, even if you're not fighting, you're still signed to the organization. Conor McGregor, you're on the list because all it is resume to him, your overall resume, which is not pound for pound. But that's the only way you could put Jon Jones at number 1. The other way, and again, the second way wouldn't have him at number 1. It would have him maybe like top 5, maybe top 10. You make it purely based on the eye test, purely. He looked good 10 years ago. He looks good now, so he must still be the best. The only way that's valid is if the fighter takes a layoff, they come back against similar level competition and they look just as good. That is the only way that could work, in my opinion. Or we could do it based on resume, their actual performances, your activity, again, their recent performances. I feel like your most recent performance should be how we kind of view you, in my opinion. Obviously, the past 3, 4, 5 also matter, but I feel like that's probably the most important. I also think for Jon Jones, I think a second belt doesn't really matter. We've seen guys like GSP go up and get a second belt, but it was against Bisping, not the real champion. Ciryl Gane, not the real champion. I don't think it holds that much weight, really, to be honest. I think also Jon Jones isn't as good as he used to be. He's 2-1 in his last 3. He lost to Dominic Reyes, who got knocked out and he lost to a guy who lost to Ryan Spann. I mean, I think that pretty much says it all. He beat Cyril Gane, great win. Not the champ, but still great win. Has a free win against Stipe, and he's fought 3 times in 5 years. Before that, he went to a split decision against Thiago Santos, who was on one leg, arguably lost that fight. Horrible performance. Yes, he got the win. A win is a win. Horrible performance. Anthony Smith, he dominated. Anthony Smith sucks. He's a horrible fighter. And then before that, he beat Gustafsson in the rematch. Great performance, even though he tested positive for PEDs. And then before that was the DC rematch, which is a no contest. That's what he's done in the past 7 to 8 years. Not my GOAT. But I don't think that really validates him as number one. And again, we don't have fighters like Adesanya or Aldo still on the list because obviously they're losing. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. But they're not really active. I mean, they are somewhat active. They both have fought recently, but over the past few years, they aren't active. Sure, they're losing, but at what point are we saying, okay, are we going to value not losing on paper, Anthony Smith, but just not fighting, not taking the challenge, not fighting contenders? Or are we going to value, hey, you're losing close fights, but you're stepping in there with the best guys, you're standing up for yourself? At what point are we going to value that? But yeah, overall, my last thought on this slide, again, make it based on resume, performances, other accomplishments over the past few years. Again, in the octagon, not outside of the octagon. We're not talking about Jon Jones. Oh, we passed a USADA test. Oh, he only got arrested 2 times this year. We're not talking about that. We're talking about in-cage accomplishments. And again, if you wanted to make it a non-active GOAT list or an active GOAT list, it would look something like this. And we could all agree this is a horrible way of doing pound for pound. But who do I have as my number one pound for pound fighter on planet Earth? A lot of these guys, they're interchangeable, whatever. My number one and number two, I'm locked in on. I fully believe they are the number one and number two most skilled guys in the UFC. My number one fighter, this should not come as a surprise, Islam Makhachev. Easily pound for pound. He's the best on everything. Eye test. He's outboxing Dustin Poirier. He head kick KO'd Volk in 1 round. Granted, I get bad version of Volk, but still, even before that, the odds were stacked against him in the Volk fight. Comes to Australia, horrible weight cut, still wins. Submits the best submission guy in the UFC, Charles Oliveira. Finishes Bobby Green. Finishes Dan Hooker in 1 round. That's a really good win, aged tremendously. Finished Drew Dober. Another solid win. And he's looking really good in these performances. He's getting finishes. That's what matters. And yeah, I don't see how you put Jon Jones above Islam, to be honest. I am a little bit worried because for the pound for pound list, the UFC's pound for pound list, I'm a little bit scared because I think Arman is going to beat Islam, and that would put Jon Jones at number one, which would be horrible. I do not want to see that. But Islam has a really tough test for him in January. Arman Tsarukyan is not an easy fight by any means. That's going to be a really hard fight. I have Arman in that one, 48-47 decision. But if he could finish a guy like Arman, I mean, that would be crazy. But yeah, I think that he's number one. His resume, it's pound for pound, easily pound for pound. Again, I think that we could all agree he's number one. My number two guy, Ilia Topuria. I got Topuria number two. I have him above Alex Pereira, and I think he's also the fighter of the year, in my opinion. I've picked him in every single fight he has ever fought. I've been saying he's that guy. What could put him at number one, in my opinion? I think knocking out Volkanovski could do that again, or even maybe going to a decision would help him, because then the chinny allegations would, go to rest. But then maybe people are like, oh, he couldn't even finish a washed Volk, which is crazy that we're still saying that Volk is washed. Volk looked good in that fight. He was fast. He was winning the fight until he wasn't. It's not that Volk is washed, in my opinion. I know people are saying, well, he's not washed, but he just came back too soon. That is true. But any point in Volk's career, he gets knocked out by that punch. Again, he's always had his chin kind of up in the air. I knew that punch was coming. I think a lot of us picked Ilia. And even if it's something where, oh, well, it just, the Islam knockout, it just affected his confidence. If anything, that helped him. Because imagine he came in there super confident. He's standing up for himself. He says, let's go, let's scrap. And he gets KO'd in 10 seconds. I think, honestly, at any point, Ilia beats Volk. And it's not that Volk is washed. It's just Ilia is a horrible matchup for Volkanovski. And on top of that, Ilia, I don't mean to glaze, he's just that guy. He's just that good. He cracked one of the greatest chins of all time with his left hand. I mean, come on. He beat Max off of arguably the best performance of his career. One of, maybe not better than the Aldo performances, but still. On top of that, he submitted Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell is not a can. Bryce Mitchell is a good fighter. He beat Josh Emmett, good fighter. Jai Herbert, good fighter. Damon Jackson, he's all right. Yusuf Salal, on short notice. Yusuf Salal is an animal. That's aged really well. I think Ilia is the number 2 pound-for-pound best fighter on planet Earth. What does he need to do to get the number 1? Again, needs to beat Volk, maybe beat Lopez, in my opinion. Also, I think Lopez is going to fight Josh Emmett. I heard a rumor. But yeah, just to let you guys know, who is the number 3 pound-for-pound fighter on planet Earth? In my opinion, it's Alex Pereira. It's tough because the guys he's beating, shockingly, they're better than the people that Jon Jones was beating at light heavyweight. But they're not the most skilled. Like, I'm going to be honest, Yuri, he's tough, he's powerful. He's actually a pretty good grappler. He has power on the feet. He's not the most defensively responsible. Same thing with Jamal Hill, more of a scrapper. Again, tough, pretty good grappler. Yuri, he beat him again. But he dominated these guys, though. That's the thing. Jan Blachowicz, that's a pretty good win, too. Obviously beat Adesanya, lost to Adesanya, beat Sean Strickland, Khalil Roundtree. I think his activity is what kind of puts him at the top, in my opinion, and the finishes. His activity, he's going in there more injured than everyone else, and he's still performing really well. He's not doing an Islam or an Ilia, let me take 7-8 months to recover. He's just going in there, going at it. What does he need to do to get to number 1? Obviously, maybe win a second belt. He has to fight the number 1 contender. Stop ducking Ankalaev. Fight Ankalaev. And I actually was picking Pereira for the past year or so to beat Ankalaev. Big Ank. Yeah, I believe Alex Pereira is the number 3 pound-for-pound best fighter on planet Earth, above Jon Jones because the eye test, he has looked better. Yeah, Jon Jones is a more skilled grappler. Alex Pereira is levels above him on the feet. He has a better recent resume, and the eye test, he looks better. I have him higher than Jon Jones. Number 4, this is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. I think Merab is number 4. I know a lot of people don't like Merab, even though they loved him when I picked Sean O'Malley. That was my first video. I predicted Sean O'Malley. A ton of Merab fans or people that just don't like O'Malley were coming at me. And then I made a video right after, go check it out after this, about how Merab is the bantamweight GOAT, which I still believe. He has an insane resume. He's not getting finishes, which kind of puts him down a little bit. But he's beating Sean O'Malley, close fight, but still, he's beating Henry Cejudo. He's 50-45 Petr Yan. That's one of the best wins ever. I don't even care. He beat Jose Aldo. He snapped Marlon's winning streak, knocked him out. And there's a few other good wins. The quality of his resume is insane. He's a champion in the best division in the UFC. What does he need to do to get to number 1? He needs to beat Umar. Maybe, I don't know who else. If he beats Umar, I know he won't finish Umar, but still, if somehow, some way, he's up there. Again, it's hard because he's in a position where he's so good and so high in the pound for pound, where he needs the top guys to start losing for him to go up. He just needs to keep on winning. I think he's number 4 pound for pound, in my opinion. And he needs more of the Petr Yan performances. If he's not going to get finishes, just dominate. I think he's number 4. Number 5, I have Dricus Du Plessis. It's tough because before his championship reign and before the Whitaker fight, he wasn't beating super high-level guys. I mean, Darren Till, he's skilled on the feet. Till looked really good in that second round. Brunson, I think that was his last fight, but then he has 3 back-to-back-to-back great wins, finishing Robert Whittaker, beating Strickland, although not in great fashion, split decision. I still think he could have won. It's not a level of robbery, even a robbery in my opinion, where it's like a Dominic Reyes, Jon Jones, finishes Israel Adesanya. I can't remember the last time. Oh, I guess it was the Pereira fight. But it's been a while since Adesanya has been finished. And he beat Adesanya in better fashion than Pereira did. First guy, I think, to ever submit Israel Adesanya. And what puts him here above some of the other guys is his finishes. A lot of these guys, they're not getting finishes. I think Merab, his resume is just a tad bit better than Dricus is. And he's beating better guys, more skilled guys. Dricus is obviously getting finishes, but what does he need to do to get to the pound for pound number 1 besides the other guys losing? Needs to finish Strickland, ideally, in a rematch. That's what's putting him at the top, is finishes. And he needs to take the O of Khamzat Chimaev. I think he could do it. Again, I made a video about 2 weeks ago or so. I think DDP is going to finish Khamzat Chimaev. Check that out if you haven't seen it. But yeah, I think he's number 5. Moving on, people are going to get mad because, they really don't like Belal. I think Belal Muhammad is number 6. The thing putting him back is he's very inactive. Super inactive. I know people hate on Leon Edwards, but dude, Belal is arguably more inactive than Leon, which is crazy. I get he was waiting for a title shot, but in the past, 2 years, I think he's had 2 fights. One of them was against Gilbert Burns, which kind of a nothing fight. Good performance, but I don't really value it that much. Leon Edwards, very close fight, but a very good performance. He showed he's super skilled. Sean Brady, elite performance. Vincent Luque, good performance. Wonderboy Thompson, good performance. Damian Maia, good performance. He has a lot of good wins, a lot of quantity wins. Again, he's not very active, and he's not really finishing guys except for Sean Brady, which is crazy that he finished him. But yeah, that's kind of holding him back. What he could do to get higher up is simply, he could just be Shavkat, Ian Gary, JDM. There's a lot of young guys that he needs to get through. He's older though, so I don't know if he's going to do it. But he's very skilled. I think his striking is super underrated. And he beat Leon Edwards, who is the pound for pound top 5. Very good fighter. I have him at number 6. Number 7, this was very hard to say. I'm going to go with Volkanovski. It's tough to put him any higher because he's 1-3 in his last 4. I know I said don't just look at the losses, but in the Islam rematch, I get he came off the couch because he's stupid, but he looked horrible in that fight. Ilia, he looked good. It's just Ilia is that guy. He's one of the best fighters, in my opinion, ever. He's not high on the GOAT list. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying look at his skills. He's one of the most skilled fighters ever. So is Islam. He beat Yair Rodriguez, finished him. That's a really good win. Dominated Max Holloway, Korean Zombie, finished, dominated Brian Ortega. Had a close fight against Max Holloway. His resume is insane. His recent resume, though, he has 1 win in the past 2.5 years. And he's not going to fight until maybe February or later. He's been super inactive, which is good, but it's going to put him a little bit down on the GOAT list. Not the GOAT list, the pound for pound list. Why do I think he's better than Jon Jones or higher on the GOAT list? I think that in 2024, I believe that Volkanovski has a better recent resume, and I believe that he is more skilled right now than Jon Jones is. Jon Jones is 37. I believe that Volkanovski is more skilled. He is losing, but he is fighting the pound for pound number 1 and number 2 guys, Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. And when it wasn't on short notice, he gave Islam Makhachev a hell of a fight. It was one of the best fights of the year, one of the most skilled, and a very close fight that some people thought he won. Ilia gets finished. We'll see how he does in the rematch. It's just he's fighting the best guys. I know he's about to go 1-4 in his last 5, and that's really going to put him down, but I still think he's skilled. We just have to see how he looks. Does he look old? But yeah, I believe right now he's number 7, in my opinion. What does he need to do? Oh, all he needs to do is beat Ilia, and he's number 1, number 2, in my opinion. But yeah, moving on. Who is number 8 in the pound for pound list in 2024? Tough to say again. I have Tom Aspinall. I think Tom Aspinall has proven that in 2024 he is more skilled than Jon Jones again, and he has a better, more recent resume, which is why I have all these guys above Jon Jones. Curtis Blades, I get heavyweight isn't a good division. I know I said that. But if it's a good division or a bad division, you know what you do? You finish guys immediately and you make it look like that you don't even belong in that division. You are so much better than everyone else. And that is exactly what he's doing. And he's fighting guys that are like, oh, heavyweight sucks, but these guys are like pretty good. Like Sergey Pavlovich, Curtis Blades, Volkov. These guys are on Gon's level. Sergey Spivak, I get he got knocked out, but still really good wins, really fast wins. What does he need to do if he beats Jon Jones? Ooh, if they make that fight, Jon Jones doesn't want that fight. He's going up. He's skyrocketing in the list. But yeah, he just needs to he needs to finish Ciryl Gane. I think that's his next move. But yeah, I have him at number 8 in my opinion. Number 9, I changed it right before I started making the video. I think Charles Oliveira is number 9. I get it may be hypocritical to not put Arman on the list. It's just Arman doesn't have the recent resume. Yes, he beat Oliveira, not really in dominant fashion. He finished and dominated Beneil. And outside of that, again, it's also the narrative. You know, Beneil was coming off of the knockout loss. Charles Oliveira finished him on that crazy win streak. And Charles Oliveira, he didn't get the finish, but he looked the best he's ever looked against a Michael Chandler that looked arguably the best he's ever looked, to be honest. He had to deal with, the referee, a bunch of cheating. He still persevered. It was the best he's ever looked, in my opinion. On top of that, he has the recent resume, finishing Chandler, finishing Poirier, finishing Gaethje, finishing Beneil, and he beat Michael Chandler, and he arguably beat Arman Tsarukyan. I think Arman won the fight, but still, and I think he fares a lot better, again, against Arman and Islam. If you watched my most recent video, I made a whole breakdown. Yeah, I think he's number 9. The thing holding him back is that he's 2-2 in his last 4. Not great, but Arman, that's not really a bad loss. He had the best moments in the fight. Beneil, he looked great. Chandler, he looked great. Islam, he looked horrible. But again, he lost to the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. He's not losing to Dominic Reyes. I think he's number 9 pound for pound, and I think he's the 9th most skilled fighter in the UFC right now. Very well-rounded. He just has to put on a good showing against Islam and Arman, or he could beat a guy like Max Holloway, which, speaking of Max Holloway, I think he's the 10th pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC in the world. Yes, he's coming off of a loss to Ilia Topuria. Yes, he's lost 3 of his last, 7 fights, 8 fights, something like that. But he's losing to the pound-for-pound number 1, number 2, or I guess at the time pound-for-pound number 1. But still, losing to Volk in his prime, losing to Ilia, nothing bad. His second fight against Volk, he arguably beat Volk. He was doing good against Topuria. He did horrible against Volk in the trilogy, but still, he beat Justin Gaethje, where Gaethje was looking the best he's ever looked, and he just dominated him, put on a masterclass against Yair, even though it was a close fight, masterclass against Calvin Kattar, and he's just showing his skills. He has the recent resume, and I think he's the 10th best fighter on planet Earth, in my opinion. But yeah, moving on, who is number 11 in the pound-for-pound conversation? I know this may seem disrespectful. I'm putting Pantoja. I know the flyweights usually get disrespected. They're very talented. It's just his last fight, Steve Erceg, going to a close decision that a lot of people thought he lost against a guy who got KO'd immediately after to like a top 5 guy. That's not a good look. His wins over Brandon Royval have aged very well. He dominated him. He beat Moreno by a split decision, even though I thought he clearly won. He has other good wins. Manel Cap, Alex Perez. He just needs to dominate and finish Kaya Sakura. he has an Aljo problem where he's not really separating himself outside of Brandon Royval from being the best. That's his issue. He just needs to start getting finishes or dominating like he did against Royval in the first and second fight. But yeah, I believe he's number 11. I just think he arguably lost against Erceg, and that does definitely put him down. No disrespect to Pantoja. Moving on, who is the 12th pound-for-pound best fighter on planet Earth? I think it's tough. I'm going to say Jon Jones. I know people are going to get really mad that I have him at number 12 and I don't have him in the top 5 or top 10. It's just, yeah, he has a crazy resume. But the second slide, are we really going to count any of that? Because again, he hasn't shown that he's as skilled as he was 10 years ago. When we look at the first slide, again, at the bottom, it's in 2013. I mean, OSP, that was kind of a nothing fight. He didn't even look that good. Cormier, no contest. Gustafsson, that was probably one of the best performances of his career. But again, he was on roids, tested positive. They had to move the entire event. And then afterwards, you take 2019 up, the stuff that really matters in the past 5 or so years. Anthony Smith, he dominated someone that wasn't really that good, to be honest. But still, I guess a win is a win. Thiago Santos arguably lost. I thought he edged it out, but against Santos on one leg, are you kidding me? That was a horrible performance. He lost to Reyes, has a really good performance against Cyril Gane because the heavyweights suck, and then gets a free win against Stipe where it was a cool finish, but he didn't look great. He just doesn't look as skilled as these other guys. He's not as skilled as he used to be. And his recent resume just doesn't hold up, so I don't believe he's really high on the pound for pound. But I think he's still skilled. I still think he's good. He's 37, he's old. He's still got it in him. He's still good. He's not bad. It's just he's not as good anymore. He's not in his prime. And he's not as good as Islam, Ilia, all these other guys. I believe he's number 12 in my opinion. What does he need to do to prove that he's better, that he's the pound-for-pound guy? Well, he has to beat Tom Aspinall. Fight the number 1 contender. You're not going to be pound-for-pound when you are clearly ducking and refusing to fight. At least Merab is saying he'll fight him. He just doesn't want to. Now, moving on, number, 13, I believe, unless I miscounted. Leon Edwards. Leon's good. His last fight was closer than people say, and he lost to a legit good fighter, even though people don't like Leon, or they don't like Leon and Belal. His grappling, I think, is underrated. I think he's actually a good grappler, even though people say he got mauled. I think his striking is just very overrated. He has very good kicks. He has a boxing problem. And he's not very good defensively. Colby Covington, kind of a nothing fight, but he proved that he was better. He dominated, but again, just wasn't really a great performance. The Usman fights, I know he was losing against Usman, but Usman was cheating like crazy. He had home field advantage, elevation, and he came back when everything was fair, and he beat Usman clearly. Again, he just is very inactive, so one loss is really going to tank him because he doesn't really have the resume, and he's just not active, which is really hurting him. Moving on, I believe this is number 14. I have Petr Yan. I'm filming this right after the fight. Looked great against Figueiredo. Beats a former champ on a 3-fight winning streak. Beat Song Yadong. Very, very good fighter. Very skilled fighter. Well-rounded. Got dominated by Merab. That's what's putting him so down. Beat Sean O'Malley, in my opinion, who's a very skilled fighter. I think he lost to Aljo in the rematch, but he lost by a few strikes. They were dead even, pretty much. Beats Corey Sandhagen, kind of dominates him in the later rounds. That's a really good win. Really should have beat Aljo in the first fight. Kind of a stupid disqualification. Should have just taken a point or two. Again, Jon Jones, when it happens to him, they take away a point. When it happens to Petr Yan, of course, the world is too cruel, too cold. Gets a DQ, loses his belt, and he beat Jose Aldo, finished him. Really crazy resume. I think he's super skilled. The eye test, he passes the eye test. I think he's 14. Moving on, this is a long video. 15, I have Sean Strickland. he's just not separating himself outside of Abus. Amavov was actually a close fight, kind of. It was competitive, wasn't really close. Really good win from him, even though he had a massive weight advantage. Dominates Israel Adesanya, but again, it was more of a defensive performance, wasn't really throwing a ton. Kind of dominates Costa, again, not really great. His losses are good, though. Jared Cannonier, Dricus arguably beat both of them. His losses are kind of what puts him up, except for the Pereira fight. Doesn't really put him up. I have him at 15, very skilled fighter. Other fighters, Aljo's up there. I just think he didn't really separate himself, and I don't think Calvin Kattar is that good, as good as he used to be, in my opinion. Other fighters, Sean O'Malley, doesn't really have a great resume. I think he lost to Yan. Good fight, though. Good showing. Beat Aljo. Good fight. Cheeto, masterclass. Cheeto sucks, though. And he lost to Merab in a close fight. Figueiredo, he just lost, so that he's definitely not top 15. But again, good resume. I think Ankalaev is another guy that's super close. If he beats Pereira, maybe even in the top 10, I think you put him. But yeah, that was a long video. That's my thoughts. I think, in my opinion, I'm only sold on 1 and 2. You can switch it. I'm not really convinced either way. But yeah, let me know what you think. Like the video. I put a ton of time into this. And yeah, that is it for me. Let me know if you disagree with something, because people always disagree. Let me know and say why you disagree. Tell me what you disagree with. I disagree with Belal at 6 because I think he sucks. Whatever. Tell me what you think. That is it for me. Jon Jones sucks.